Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. Well, this year something has happened within my collecting. I've learnt lots of lessons, I've tried lots of different things, but I've really started to understand that I really like Pilot and Flieger watches. This is not really a style of watch that really stood out to me before. I was very much sort of focused on dive watches prior to sort of starting this channel, but by diversifying a little bit, opening my mind a little bit more to trying different styles of watches, this is certainly one of the styles that has really stood out to me and that I've really actually enjoyed wearing. So what have I done? Knowing that now that I like these watches, these styles of watches, well, I now have bought 4 of them, and all 4 of them are from Aliexpress. And I think there are a really good range of different watches within the same category from Aliexpress. Different sizes, different qualities, different price points. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to put all 4 of these watches side by side. Now, this is not going to be one of those ones where we list everything down and give them a score, because that's not the style of video that I'm trying to achieve. I'm not trying to pick a winner out of these 4 watches, because I think all 4 of these watches are winners, but they're all different in their own right. And I own all 4 of them for different reasons. I wasn't trying to buy the same watch over and over again. I was trying to sort of diversify a little bit within this Pilot Flieger style watches. And I think I've done quite well. I think I've picked 4 watches that really represent different categories within prices and qualities and sizes and wearability and wow factor, and that's what I want to talk about today. And guys, if you are enjoying this content or anything else that I make, I do appreciate you watching, but if you haven't clicked on that subscribe button, do you mind just taking that second and go click? I really would appreciate it. And guys, if you are interested in any of these watches that I show you today, these are all watches that I've bought myself with my own money. Well, I'm going to leave some affiliate links down below, and if you click on those, I'll actually earn a tiny little fraction of a percentage, and that money will go back into this channel buying more watches so I can show them to you as well. So I do appreciate you if you choose to use those links. But let's flip the camera around now and let me show you these 4 watches that are in this Pilot Flieger style category. So here we have my 4 Flieger or Pilot style watches. All of these watches I bought for specific reasons. I also bought them for me to wear and to enjoy, so I picked them very deliberately, and I think they all have some real good strengths and interest factors, but they also have a few sort of negatives or cons to them, and that's sort of what I'm going to be talking about today, because from buying Flieger Pilot watches on AliExpress, I think this is a really good and interesting range that you are able to find there and buy for yourself. So I'm going to be talking to you about them in sort of categories. But first, let me introduce them to you. This one here is my Hruodland F016, which, yep, that's a particularly nice watch. I do love that watch. We do have a San Martin. It's the SN0030-G2. We have the Tandorio Pilot watch. I don't think it actually has any sort of specific name, so I'm just going to be calling it the Tandorio Pilot watch. And we have my Escapement time, H0292. When I'm referring to these, I'm just going to be referring to them as the Hruodland, the San Martin, the Tandorio, and the Escapement time, just to make things a little bit easier. Let's firstly talk about price, because price does get a little bit of context in regards to when we're talking about quality and finishing and movements, etc. So let's just discuss that quickly. The Hruodland cost me 300 Australian dollars. The San Martin was 270 Australian dollars. The Tandorio was just over 100 Australian dollars. And the Escapement time cost me 260 Australian dollars. So most of them were in the same sort of pricing category, except for the Tandorio, which is sort of the super affordable watch in this collection. But I also haven't spent a huge amount of money on any of them individually either. And that was sort of my comfort zone when it came to buying this style of watch from AliExpress. In around that sort of 300 Australian dollar range is quite a nice sweet spot for me, even in regards to other type of watches on AliExpress. And these 3 watches here absolutely fit into that sort of zone, so I'm very comfortable with that sort of price. But the other reasons I bought these particular ones was because of the sizes of the watches, and I found that quite important, especially when you come into sort of Flieger Pilot watches. Traditionally, as we know, they are quite large watches. They are oversized watches, and if you buy one that is actually based completely on a traditional Flieger or Pilot watch, it's going to be big. And I understand that. I agree that, that is the traditional style. However, I don't want to wear a huge watch on my wrist. I don't want it to be like this. I'm wearing this because I want to wear a watch, not because I'm actually piloting a plane, obviously. So the sizes of the watches were very much on the forefront of my mind when I picked these watches here. The biggest in the lineup here that we have in front of us is the Hruodland. And I'm only going to be talking about 2 dimensions because I think that's all that really counts when we're talking about it today in regards to comparing these a little bit. The case diameter of this one is 43, and that lug to lug, it is quite big. It is 51.8 mils. Now, that is sort of pushing the boundaries of what I can consider or fit onto my wrist, and it was the thing that scared me the most about buying this one. However, it does have a fair bit of downturning to lug, so it does fit my wrist, but only just. Sanman, I definitely considered buying this one, and then obviously bought this one because of the dimensions on it. I thought this is a nice sweet spot for an everyday watch. Those dimensions being a 39mm case with a lug to lug of 49mm. Now, I think that is a very nice day-to-day wearable size. The lug to lug is a little bit longer than some 39mm watches that I've had before, but what that does is it makes it feel a little bit bigger on wrist. Being 39mm, it's not the biggest watch, but having a little bit more substance by lug to lug actually for me works very well with this particular watch. The Tandorio, my little super affordable pilot's watch, comes also in 39mm, but it's a little bit shorter at 48mm. This does make it a nice, easy watch to wear on wrist. Just like the Sanman, but even a tiny bit smaller, so it feels a little bit more sort of easy to wear, I guess. And for a lot of people, long lug to lugs can be a negative depending on your size of wrist and your style of what you like on your wrist. So having something a little bit shorter may suit them best. My escapement time, this one for me probably has the best dimensions, and it's one of the big reasons I bought this watch. The case diameter is 40.5 with a 49 lug to lug, but also a fair bit of curvature. I think for me this is probably the sweet spot when it comes to sizes, especially for this sort of style watch. It's not tiny because it is really meant to be sort of that pilot style watch, but it's not too big that it looks a little bit silly on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. So let's talk movements, and I think this is kind of interesting because there is an interesting range of movements within these watches, and there's different positives and negatives of those movements depending on what you sort of want out of it. The Hruodland, it was very much a factor in buying this watch. This has a hand-wound Seagull ST3621. Now, I like Seagull movements, but I have to say, if there's choices, quite often I'll end up picking one of the other options. But in this case, it was actually one of the primary reasons for buying this watch, because when you flip it over, this is what we see. Not only is it a really good looking movement, but it's lovely displayed with this big, large, open see-through case back, which takes up almost the entire diameter of that case. And it is beautiful. I really love looking at that manual wind movement. So for me, that was a big motivating factor. The Sanman contains a Japanese movement, and it contains the YN55. And I've had another watch with the YN55, and I was very impressed by the performance of it. And by researching that particular movement, I can certainly say and understand that it is very reliable, and I'm very comfortable having that movement in a watch. It also tends to allow a watch to be a little bit more affordable, and hey, a Japanese movement and making a watch a little bit more affordable certainly ticks the box for me. The Tandorio has the Seiko NH35, which just like that YN55 has all those positives of being affordable as well as being reliable, and it's something that as us as watch enthusiasts, especially those watching who buy watches from Aliexpress, definitely love to find watches with the NH35, and there's plenty to choose from because it is a well-used movement. Now, my escapement time does contain the PT5000 movement, which is a clone Chinese-made movement of an ETA movement, that making it a high beat movement. This one does have a see-through case back, so you can actually see that movement. I've spoken about this movement a fair amount, and I have to say I am quite comfortable owning watches with that movement in it. However, from a longevity perspective, how do I feel about those movements? Well, this seagull movement, I'm a little bit unsure. It is a clone movement of a Swiss hand winding movement, a much older movement. So I'll be very interested to see how this one performs long term. Obviously, the Japanese made movements, I'm very comfortable from a long term perspective that they will last. The PT5000 movement, as I said, I like it, but I am very aware of longevity of that particular movement. It's probably not a movement that I'll end up getting serviced. It might be a movement that I swap over, or possibly, and probably most likely, is something that I would run until basically it's not working or performing very well anymore, and then put the watch aside and just invest in something new with another movement in it. Now let's talk about the quality of the watches, because we've got 3 watches here that are all of a similar price range and then one that's much cheaper. So how do they compare, and how does the much cheaper watch compare when it comes to quality? Well, let's just talk about some of the basics. Let's not go into too much detail, but this Hruodland is very good quality. I'm very impressed by it. It's very well put together, has nice applied indices, lovely looking hands. As you can see, it's got a little turbine there, which is a cool little feature. And what I have to say is that that is actually made really well as well, which sort of tends to lean towards it being a well-made watch. And what about the brushing? I find the brushing on this actually pretty good. It's probably not the best brushing I've ever seen. It's certainly not the worst brushing I've ever seen. I think it absolutely sort of suits this sort of price range of watch. I'm very happy and comfortable with it. I don't really have any complaints about it. And I have to say, it's probably of the similar sort of quality as the San Martin. And San Martin is known very well for quality. And this particular watch is absolutely well put together. We obviously have a bracelet on this one, which then sort of leans towards sort of seeing if there's any actual sort of fit and finish issues. This one does not have any fit and finish issues, all brushed. The brushing is very nice. I have to say, probably a very similar quality to the Hruodland, which probably actually says more about that watch than it does this watch, because we come to expect good finishing from the San Martins. Now, ultra affordable. What is the overall quality of this one like? Well, I think it's actually pretty good. Also brushed on the sides, and I'm pretty happy with that brushing. You can probably see it's a tiny little bit rougher than these two, but actually not by that much. And certainly not 1/3 of as good as these ones, since it's 1/3 of the price. So overall, I think it's actually really well made and really well put together. Very happy. I think it's one of the better, sort of more affordable watches I've found on Aliexpress. And the escapement time, I have to say, is probably outstanding. Very well put together, very well finished. Brushing on this one is very good. It's probably the best out of the 3 of them, which quite surprises me really, especially when there's a San Martin in the lineup. And every little part about it, all the little features of it are very, very good. So I have to say, I'm rather impressed about the quality and finishing of all of these 4 watches. And let's talk straps, and this is kind of an interesting one. I have to say, this one looks fantastic. It really suits this watch. They've picked the right sort of style of strap for it, the right color. However, it's not a particularly good quality strap. There's no leather in this whatsoever. They don't even claim to have a little bit of leather in it. It is definitely some sort of fake material. It doesn't feel great on wrist. It has a real sort of plasticky kind of feel to it, which is a little bit disappointing. I would have loved to have seen that on a really nice strap, but I'm going to say the best thing about this strap, or the best thing about any strap, especially on watches this style, is that there's lots of aftermarket straps available that are made really well. And there's lots made that look like this because you can buy specific Flieger and Pilot style straps. So that is something that I will be doing for this one. Now, obviously we do have this one on a bracelet, so it is a bit different. And I have to say it's one of my motivating factors for buying it, because I'm really enjoying this style of watch, and having this style on a bracelet, sounds perfect to me. And as I do expect with San Martin, it is very, very well made. Good fit and finish, nice brushing, nice solid end links, has a nice clasp, not very big, not much micro adjust, but it does look and feel good on the wrist. So that is sort of something which I'm very happy with, and I'm happy to have a Flieger on a bracelet. The Tandorio, well, being an ultra affordable watch, I was not expecting much out of the strap that came on this one, and that was exactly what I got. I got something that was terrible. I'm not particularly impressed by that, but I'm very unimpressed by this one here. But that's perfectly fine. This is an ultra affordable sort of mechanical watch, Japanese movement watch. I can't expect the strap to be good. I don't even think it looks that great, to be honest, but that's perfectly fine. I haven't been wearing it on that strap. I've just put it back on it for this particular video. The one that surprises me probably most out of all of these watches is the escapement time. For the same sort of price as these two watches, I kind of was not expecting a very good strap. I'm going to say it looks very good. It's very interesting with the orange underneath, but I'm going to say it's a very good quality strap. I really, really like it. It's not a ultra high luxury leather strap when you look at it compared to some watches that cost 10 times the amount, but it's not a watch that costs 10 times the amount. It is a really good quality strap. I'm really impressed by it, and as you can see by all the wear on it, I have been wearing it on this strap, and I've been wearing this watch a lot because I really enjoy this one in my collection and on my wrist. It is actually one of the standout features of this watch, having such a good quality strap. So that was very impressive and a bit of a surprise, I have to say. Now, when I picked all of these four watches, I did have to say that I picked them because of certain wow factors. Being sort of Flieger or Pilot style watches, they're fairly similar, fairly basic. They have a particular look to the dial. There's not generally much that makes me go wow about them, but these ones I specifically picked because of a bit of a wow factor to them. This one has a very obvious wow factor to it, doesn't it? It's got this little turbine at the 6 o'clock in the space of the sub dial for the second hand. It's even got a little red dot, so it can still actually be used as a second hand. It's got blue hands, possibly blued, but I don't think so, but I'm okay with that. Very interesting crown, has a really cool little plane there on the side, and yes, that is a wow factor for me. So this watch really does make me think wow, and it said wow from the store when I looked at the pictures, so in hand it has said even more wow. The San Martin was a little bit of a surprise for me because I think when I ordered it, I knew it was a San Martin, so I just assumed it would wow me. But it has not wowed me. It hasn't disappointed me. I don't think it is a bad watch by any means. I think it's a very well-made watch. It does everything that it should do. It's very well made. It does come in a very nice bracelet that I do enjoy, as well as the size, etc. But there's nothing on it that is making me go, wow, look at that. Wow, look at that. There's nothing that's drawing me towards this watch, which is a little bit disappointing, but it's probably partly my fault because, I don't know, I was just expecting it to wow me, and I thought perhaps the bracelet would be part of that wow factor, and it hasn't wowed me in that way. It has just made me like it for what it is. Tandorio, well, does it have a wow factor? Well, actually it has a couple of sort of wow factors. Firstly, those hand design, those sort of cathedral hands, I think they look very cool. They're not perfectly done, but this is an affordable watch. I like the numbers and the numerals there. I like how they're sort of styled. They are very cool. And I have to admit, the overall quality for the price has wowed me. So price, I guess, is a bit of a factor in the wow factor for that one. The escapement time, well, that's for me a little bit next level because I specifically picked this one. This was the first one that I picked out of these four watches, and I picked them because I thought it had the most wow factor and that it might well be my one and only Pilot Flieger watch. That's not how it turned out, but that's why I picked it, and it absolutely has some wow factor to it. You'll see the blue on the hands, either blued or colored blued. Doesn't really matter in the end. It's a relatively affordable watch. The size does wow me, the quality wows me, the onion crown I really like. I think that gives it a real bit of character. I think if they put the blue on the hands on the San Martin and put an onion crown, I think I would love it. I think it just needs those little touches from me personally to really sort of connect with it. And as I said, I really like the strap. That was a bit of a surprise wow for me. And to be surprised by a watch is nice as well. So just to round out this video, I just want to quickly talk about each watch positives and negatives. I'm not going to spend too much. I have reviewed all of these watches so you can see all the more in-depth issues or positives of each watch. Obviously the Hruodland, there is lots of positive for me going on here. Overall look, quality, hands, turbine, love the crown, love the back there, love the look of that there. From a negative perspective, there's actually only two things. The strap quality, obviously, but that doesn't bother me too much because I'll end up buying a better quality strap. But probably the overall size is probably the biggest negative out of that one. For me, I am okay with it, but I think it is absolutely on the limits of me being okay with it. The San Martin actually has a lot going for it overall. All the aspects of it are very good, but for me the only negative is that it just doesn't wow me. Really, that is the only negative about it. It's a bit of a shame because it could be the best one in the bunch, but it doesn't wow me. Positives of this one, price is definitely a positive. Look, wearability with that size is definitely one of them. Negatives, okay, yes, the lume doesn't match when it comes to the hands as well as the numbers. When you look at those hands, they are coloured, and you can see that they've actually got nice long syringe tips, but you really can't see that when you're sort of looking at it from a distance because they coloured those hands, which is a little bit of an odd choice. And yes, the strap is not very good. Everything about this watch I think is a positive. Those hands, the dial, the onion crown, the overall quality, the brushing, the strap there. I'm even very happy with the movement. The only negative I have to say about this particular one is that you can hear that movement when it is on rest. It does make a little bit of noise. Let me put it up on the microphone. And that's probably because it does have that see-through case back. I would much prefer this watch with a solid case back with something a little bit interesting on there. I think that would look better, but I also think that would probably stop that sound from being heard from your wrist. Okay, that's all I have to say today. There is no clear winner. I like all of these watches for different reasons. I really just wanted to show them all to you because I think it's a really good range of these style watches that is available on Aliexpress. And as always, guys, I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos, and I do hope to see you in the next one.